Dr. Catherine Reynolds stared at her quantum monitoring station, her coffee growing cold beside the holographic display. The readings made no sense. The alien fleet approaching the solar system broadcast peace in every conceivable frequency, yet something about their transmission patterns set her nerves on edge. Dr. Reynolds, her assistant, Mike Torres, appeared at her shoulder. The UN Security Council is waiting for your analysis of the Myraxian signals. Tell them I need 10 more minutes. Kate zoomed in on a particular oscillation pattern, her fingers dancing through the holographic interface. The Myraxians had appeared 3 days ago, their ships gliding into the solar system like ethereal jellyfish, trailing streams of light that defied conventional physics. Something caught her eye, a subtle variance in the background radiation. She isolated the pattern, enhancing it through multiple filters. Her heart stopped. Mike, pull up the deep space readings from the Kuiper Belt Telescope Array. Focus on sectors 7 through 12 from the last 6 months. But those are just routine scans off. Just do it. The new data materialized beside her primary display. Kate's hand shook as she overlaid the patterns. The correlation was undeniable. The same radiation signature she detected in the Myraxian transmissions appeared in 12 different star systems. All went dark within days of the signature appearing. My God, she whispered. They're not here for peace. The facility's warning system blared to life. Kate's screens filled with incoming data as the Myraxian fleet accelerated, their peaceful formation shifting into something far more ominous. The elegant spiral pattern of their approach transformed into attack vectors that any military strategist would recognize. Security breach. The facility's AI announced. Unknown quantum signature detected in primary defense networks. All systems compromised. Kate's fingers flew across her console. Torres, get me a hardline to Pentagon Command. The quantum networks. Her words cut off as every display in the facility flickered and died. Through the reinforced windows of the research center, she watched in horror as the quantum defense satellites, humanity's most advanced protection system, went dark one by one. They used our own transmissions, she realized, the truth hitting her like a physical blow. Every message we sent them, every response we received. They were mapping our entire defense grid. The Myraxian ships began to glow with an intense blue light, the same light that, according to her analysis, had preceded the silence of 12 other civilizations. 12 other worlds that had welcomed them with open arms, only to fall silent forever. Dr. Reynolds, General Harrison's voice crackled through an ancient speaker system, the only communication still functioning. What the hell is happening to our defenses? Kate grabbed the radio handset, her mind racing through possibilities. General, the Myraxians aren't ambassadors. They're exterminators. They've been doing this across the galaxy, using first contact protocols to get close enough to disable planetary defenses. Can we bring the quantum grid back online? No. Kate watched as more defense systems failed. They're not just disrupting our technology. They're using it against us. Everything connected to the quantum network is compromised. The first Myraxian weapon strikes lit up the upper atmosphere, quantum disruptors tearing through Earth's most sophisticated shields like they were tissue paper. Humanity's hubris in their advanced technology was about to cost them everything. As emergency sirens blared across the facility, Kate's eyes fell on an old filing cabinet in the corner, its metal surface dusty with age. The label caught her attention. Archived projects. Pre-digital era. Sometimes, she thought, the best solutions weren't in pushing forward, but in looking back. The Pentagon's war room erupted in chaos as holographic displays flickered and died. Kate Reynolds stood before the Joint Chiefs, her voice steady despite the devastation, unfolding on the emergency backup screens. The quantum Aegis network is completely compromised, she reported, pointing to the cascading failures across the globe. Our most advanced satellites are being turned against us. Each quantum-linked defense system is becoming an entry point for their attack. General Harrison slammed his fist on the table. How the hell did we miss this? We spent trillions on these defenses. Because we built everything on the same fundamental technology, Kate explained, pulling up a simplified diagram on one of the few working analog displays. The Myraxians didn't need to break our encryption. They simply hijacked the quantum entanglement protocols we use for instantaneous communication. It's like they had the skeleton key to our entire defense network. Outside, the sky turned an ominous purple as the Myraxian fleet entered the upper atmosphere. Earth's remaining defensive weapons activated automatically. Plasma torpedoes, hypersonic missiles, and particle beam arrays, humanity's pride and joy, launched toward the alien ships. The assembled military leaders watched in horror as their attacks dissipated harmlessly against the Myraxian shields. It wasn't just that the weapons were ineffective. They seemed to make the alien vessels stronger. They're absorbing our energy weapons, Kate realized, studying the readings from surviving sensors, converting our own attacks into shield power. Everything we throw at them just makes them more difficult to destroy. A junior officer burst into the room. "Sir, Chicago just went dark. All quantum-based infrastructure is failing. Power grid, communications, defense systems, everything's dead." "Not everything," Kate muttered, her mind racing. She turned to the general. "Sir, what percentage of our military still runs on traditional electronic systems?" Harrison frowned. "Less than 15%. We converted almost everything to quantum tech over the last decade. Seemed foolish to maintain outdated systems." The room shook as a Myraxian ship passed overhead. Through the reinforced windows, Kate watched its strange, organic-looking hull ripple with absorbed energy. Each attack from Earth's remaining defenses only added to the ethereal glow surrounding the alien fleet. "We need to shut down the Quantum Aegis network completely," Kate declared. "Every second it stays active gives them more control over our infrastructure, and leave Earth defenseless." Colonel Rivera objected. "The QAN is the most sophisticated defense system ever created, and that's exactly why it's failing us," Kate countered. "We put all our eggs in one very advanced basket. The Myraxians didn't achieve space travel yesterday. They've had centuries to perfect their quantum disruption technology. We're fighting them exactly how they want us to fight." Another explosion rocked the building. The backup generators kicked in as the main power failed, casting the room in dim red emergency lighting. On the remaining screens, more cities went dark as the Myraxians systematically disabled Earth's quantum infrastructure. Kate's eyes wandered to an old photograph on the wall, a relic from the Cold War showing the first missile defense systems. Something about its antiquated technology sparked a memory, a conversation from her early days at the Pentagon about mothballed defense projects. "Sir," she said slowly, "what do you know about Project Dead Hand?" Harrison's head snapped up. "That's classified information, Doctor, and irrelevant. It was decommissioned decades ago." "But was it dismantled?" The general's silence spoke volumes. "The Myraxians can hijack our quantum tech because it's what they expected to find," Kate pressed. "But what about systems so old, so primitive by their standards, that they never even consider them a threat?" Before Harrison could respond, the building's structure groaned ominously. Through the windows, they watched as another Myraxian ship positioned itself above the Pentagon, its hull pulsing with stolen energy. Time was running out. If humanity was going to survive, they needed to think backward to move forward. The Pentagon's subbasement levels were a maze of corridors that predated the quantum revolution. Kate Reynolds' flashlight beam cut through decades of dust as she followed General Harrison deeper into the facility's oldest section. Emergency lighting cast everything in a blood-red glow, punctuated by distant explosions as the Myraxian assault continued above. "If I'm right about this," Kate said, ducking under a low-hanging pipe, Project Dead Hand wasn't just mothballed. It was preserved. Harrison's face remained grim in the dim light. "Need-to-know basis, Doctor, and until 10 minutes ago, you didn't need to know." They reached a heavy blast door, marked with faded Cyrillic letters alongside English text. The general pressed his palm against a scanner so old it used simple electrical conductivity instead of biometrics. With a groan of protest, the door swung open. "Oh my God," Kate whispered. The room beyond hummed with activity. Rows of analog computers lined the walls, their vacuum tubes glowing softly. Magnetic tape spools turned continuously, recording data from sensors that had been running unnoticed for decades. The air smelled of warm electronics and gear oil. "Welcome to America's dirty little secret," Harrison said, walking between banks of machinery. "When the Soviets developed their dead hand system for nuclear retaliation, we didn't just build a counter system. We built something better." Kate ran her fingers over a control panel. "These are analog computers, completely isolated from any quantum network, no digital components at all." "That's right. Project Dead Hand was our insurance policy, a fully automated defense grid built with technology so basic, so foolproof, that nothing short of physically destroying it could stop it from working." An ancient printer clattered to life, spooling out readings on continuous feed paper. Kate grabbed the printout, her eyes widening as she interpreted the data. "These readings, they're tracking the Myraxian fleet. But how? Our quantum sensors are blind." Harrison smiled for the first time since the invasion began. "Radar, Doctor. Simple, crude, electromagnetic radar. Combined with a network of optical telescopes and magnetic field detectors. No quantum entanglement, no sophisticated AI. Just basic physics and mechanical computers." The Myraxians would have dismissed all this as background noise, Kate realized. Their sensors are too advanced to even register such primitive technology as a threat. She moved deeper into the facility, discovering more secrets. Mechanical plotting boards tracked orbital objects with precise clockwork mechanisms. Analog guidance systems stood ready to direct countermeasures. The entire room was a testament to human ingenuity from an era before quantum computing. Why wasn't this dismantled? She asked, though she was beginning to understand. Cost, primarily, Harrison replied. The shutdown procedures were classified beyond top secret, and the maintenance robots just kept running on their original programming. Eventually, everyone who knew about it either died or decided it was safer to leave it alone. Sometimes the best place to hide something is in plain sight. Another explosion rocked the facility. Dust rained from the ceiling, but the analog equipment continued functioning, immune to the quantum disruption above. Kate's flashlight beam caught something behind one of the computer banks, a thick manual labeled Project Dead Hand, Activation Protocols. "Can we bring it online?" she asked, reaching for the manual. Harrison caught her wrist. "Dr. Reynolds, you need to understand something. This system wasn't designed with surgical precision. It's a sledgehammer, not a scalpel. If we activate it, we might save humanity," she finished, "or trigger a catastrophe worse than the invasion." He released her wrist. Dead Hand doesn't just control a few hidden weapons. It's an entire parallel infrastructure that's been sleeping for 40 years. Orbital platforms disguised as debris, hidden silos, autonomous weapons platforms, all running on technology so old it might as well be magic to the Myraxians. Kate lifted the manual, its weight somehow reassuring in its physicality. Above them, another explosion rattled the ceiling tiles. "We're out of options, General," she said. "Sometimes the past is our best hope for the future." The descent into Cheyenne Mountain's forbidden levels felt like traveling back in time. Kate Reynolds led her hastily assembled team through corridors that hadn't seen human presence in decades, guided by blueprints from the Dead Hand manual. "Motion detected," announced Dr. James Wilson, their systems specialist, pointing to an ancient security scanner. "But it's not us." Maintenance robots, built in the 1980s, still patrolled the facility. One emerged from a side passage, rolling on rubber treads, its simple optical sensors regarding them with mechanical indifference. It continued its endless routine, dusting surfaces with a rotating brush attachment. "They've been down here all this time," Kate marveled. following their original programming without updates or modifications. The facility's primary control center lay behind a series of blast doors, each requiring different authentication methods. No biometrics, no quantum keys, just physical switches, mechanical combinations, and Cold War paranoia. "How many nuclear launches?" Lieutenant Sarah Martinez asked, noting the activation panels they passed. "None," Kate replied, studying the manual. Dead Hand wasn't about nuclear weapons. It was something far more ambitious, a completely autonomous defense network that could operate without human intervention. They reached the main control room. Rows of analog computers filled the space, their vacuum tubes casting an amber glow. Mechanical plotters scratched away at paper rolls, tracking objects in space. The air hummed with the sound of cooling fans and rotating memory drums. "Jesus," Wilson breathed, examining a computer bank. "These machines, they're not just running basic programs. They're learning." Kate nodded. Mechanical neural networks. No digital components. No quantum processing. Pure analog computation. The Soviets theorized it was possible, but we actually built it. A distant explosion rocked the facility. Dust fell from the ceiling, but the ancient equipment continued functioning, undisturbed by the quantum warfare raging above. "Primary activation sequence requires 3 keys," Kate announced, consulting the manual. "But there's a problem. They're not here." Martinez checked the security feeds, old CCTV monitors that still worked perfectly. "Where are they?" 3 different bunkers across the country. A fail-safe to prevent any single facility from activating the system. Kate projected a map onto a yellowed screen. "We need teams at Mount Weather, Raven Rock, and here." Wilson's face fell. "The Myraxians control the skies. How do we reach the other bunkers?" A mechanical clatter drew their attention. One of the maintenance robots had entered the room, but instead of continuing its cleaning routine, it rolled to a cabinet and opened it with a precise movement. Inside were 3 old CRT monitors, each showing the tunnel system. "My God," Kate whispered, running to examine the displays. "The facilities are connected. Underground rail networks built during the Cold War. The robots have been maintaining them too." "Mom," Martine is called from another station. "I'm reading massive power consumption from deeper in the mountain. Something's been drawing nuclear-level energy this whole time." Kate consulted the manual schematics. "The rail system. It's been ready for 40 years, waiting for someone to need it." She turned to her team. "Wilson, you and Martinez take the east tunnel to Raven Rock. Cooper, you're with Roberts heading to Mount Weather. I'll coordinate from here." "What about the Myraxians?" Cooper asked. "Won't they detect the power signatures?" Kate smiled. "That's the beauty of it. The power plants are thorium reactors, 1960s technology. No quantum signatures, no radiation spikes. To their sensors, it'll look like background noise from Earth's core." The team split up, heading for the railway access points. Kate remained in the control center, bringing more systems online. Each activated computer revealed new aspects of Dead Hand's true scope. It wasn't just a weapons system. It was an entire parallel infrastructure that had been hiding in plain sight for decades. As she worked, a mechanical plotter began drawing new trajectories. The Myraxian fleet was moving into optimal attack position, unaware that humanity's oldest technology was about to become their newest nightmare. "Time to wake up," Kate whispered to the humming machines. "The world needs you again." Kate's fingers flew across the analog controls as another explosion rocked Cheyenne Mountain. The old monitors showed Wilson's team had reached Raven Rock, while Cooper's group was still en route to Mount Weather through the underground rail system. "Status report," she called through the crackling radio. "Raven Rock reached." Wilson's voice came through, distorted but clear. "But we got a problem. The activation console requires mathematical solutions based on the original programmer's equations. These aren't just keys, they're tests." Kate pulled up the facility's original documentation. They wanted to make sure whoever activated the system understood the consequences. Start with the first equation. I'll guide you through it. The main display in Cheyenne Mountain suddenly lit up with new data. The mechanical plotters began moving faster, tracking thousands of objects in Earth's orbit. Objects that, according to modern satellites, didn't exist. "My God," Kate whispered, watching the plots. "They're everywhere." Dead Hand didn't just track space debris. It put it there. Thousands of weapons platforms disguised as junk, hiding in plain sight for decades. The radio crackled again. "Mount weather reached," Cooper reported. But the Miraxians just hit Denver. The mountain's taking heavy fire. Kate stabilized her screen as another blast shook the facility. The plotters kept working, immune to the quantum disruption that had disabled modern technology. Each new trajectory revealed more of Dead Hand's hidden arsenal: kinetic bombardment platforms, automated defense satellites, and weapons systems that had been theoretical in the 1980s. First key sequence aligned, Wilson reported from Raven Rock. The master console in front of Kate hummed to life, analog displays flickering with new information. "Cooper, what's your status?" "Working on it. These equations, they're not just math. They're asking us to calculate blast yields, orbital mechanics, and, my God, the casualties. They're making us calculate potential civilian casualties." Kate's throat tightened. They wanted anyone activating the system to understand exactly what they were unleashing. "Keep going. We don't have a choice." The facility's ancient CCTV system showed new movement. More maintenance robots were emerging from charging stations, their original programming shifting to combat protocols that had laid dormant for 40 years. In the launch bays, mechanical arms began preparing weapons systems that no modern scanner had ever detected. Second key sequence aligned, Cooper called out. The master console's displays advanced again, revealing more of the system's true capabilities. Kate studied the data with growing amazement. Dead Hand wasn't just a weapons platform. It was a learning system. For decades, it had been analyzing patterns, developing strategies, and evolving within the constraints of its analog architecture. The Cold War engineers had created something far beyond their time. Multiple Miraxian ships descending. Martinez's voice cut through the radio. They're starting their final attack run. The mechanical plotters accelerated, tracking each alien vessel. The system was predicting their movements with impossible accuracy, using 40 years of observational data to calculate their tactical patterns. Third key sequence ready, Wilson reported. Kate took a deep breath. "On my mark, all stations enter final authorization code simultaneously. 3, 2, 1. Execute." 3 keys turned at once, separated by hundreds of miles but connected by technology that had outlasted the empire that inspired it. The master console erupted with activity as Dead Hand awoke fully for the first time since its creation. Across Earth's orbit, thousands of pieces of space debris suddenly shed their disguises. Weapons platforms that had been gathering solar power for decades powered up. Kinetic bombardment systems oriented toward their targets. And deep beneath multiple mountains, massive thorium reactors spun up to full power, their analog control systems immune to Miraxian interference. "Dead Hand is online," Kate announced, watching as the system began its first autonomous combat operations. "May God help us all." Above, the Miraxian fleet continued their attack, unaware that humanity's greatest deterrent wasn't in their sophisticated quantum networks, but in the silent, patient machines that had watched and waited in the dark for nearly half a century. The Miraxian flagship hung over Washington, D.C., its quantum shields rippling with stolen energy from Earth's disabled defense grid. Inside Cheyenne Mountain, Kate watched through Dead Hand's primitive but functional monitoring systems as the alien fleet commenced their final attack formation. "They're laughing at us." Wilson's voice came through the radio from Raven Rock. "Intercepted communications show they're actually laughing. They think we're defenseless." Kate allowed herself a grim smile. "Let them laugh. Dead Hand, Execute primary strike pattern Alpha. The analog computers whirred to life, their mechanical components clicking and spinning as they coordinated the first counterattack. Across Earth's orbit, chunks of space debris suddenly shed their decades-old disguises. What appeared to be a defunct 1980s satellite transformed into a kinetic bombardment platform, its surface breaking apart to reveal tungsten rods that had been waiting patiently for nearly half a century. First wave launching, Kate announced. Impact in 30 seconds. The Myraxian flagship's commander broadcast a message across all frequencies, their artificial translation dripping with contempt. Your primitive projectiles cannot penetrate our quantum. The rod struck at precisely 22 times the speed of light. The flagship's quantum shields, designed to dissipate energy weapons and deflect modern projectiles, might as well have been tissue paper. The simple tungsten rod, accelerated by 40 years of collected gravitational potential energy, punched through the alien vessel like a bullet through cardboard. Direct hit, Cooper shouted from Mount Weather. Their shields, they didn't even register the attack. They were looking for energy signatures, not plain old metal. Kate's fingers danced across the analog controls. Dead hand, execute secondary strike pattern. All platforms, engage at will. Across Earth's orbit, more debris revealed its true nature. Hundreds of kinetic platforms, their targeting systems guided by mechanical computers that had been analyzing Myraxian movement patterns for days, began their assault. The alien fleet scrambled to respond, but their sophisticated sensors were calibrated all wrong. They were looking for quantum signatures, energy buildup, radiation spikes. Anything but simple objects moving really, really fast. They're adapting, Martinez called out, changing shield configurations. But it was too late. Dead Hand had predicted this response 40 years ago. As the Myraxians adjusted their shields to stop the kinetic bombardment, another wave of hidden platforms revealed themselves. These launched what appeared to be simple chemical rockets, technology so old it predated the space race. The alien ships ignored them. That was their second mistake. The rockets detonated, releasing clouds of aluminum chaff, millions of tiny metal strips that had been refined using 1960s techniques. The Myraxians' quantum communication networks, which relied on precise temporal manipulation, suddenly found themselves trying to transmit through a storm of radio-reflective particles. Their fleet coordination is breaking down, Kate observed, watching the mechanical plotters track the chaos above. They can't maintain formation without their quantum links. Dead Hand, execute tertiary strike pattern. The final wave of platforms revealed themselves. These had been the most ambitious part of the original project. Automated manufacturing facilities that had been slowly, quietly building more kinetic weapons using solar power and space-based resources for decades. Multiple confirmed hits, Wilson reported. Their flagship is venting atmosphere. 3 support vessels have lost power. They're retreating. Kate watched as the mighty Myraxian fleet, which had disabled humanity's most advanced technology without effort, found itself being systematically torn apart by weapons that would have been outdated in the Soviet era. New transmission from the alien fleet, Martinez announced. They're requesting a ceasefire. Denied, Kate responded, watching as more kinetic platforms lined up their shots. Dead Hand, continue assault. Target all remaining vessels. The Myraxian fleet, or what remained of it, began a desperate retreat, their formation shattered, their confidence broken. They had come expecting to find a civilization dependent on quantum technology. Instead, they found humanity's insurance policy. A Cold War fever dream turned into humanity's salvation. As the mechanical plotters tracked the aliens' retreat, Kate couldn't help but appreciate the irony. In preparing for a war that never came, humanity had unknowingly created the perfect weapon for a war they never saw coming. The Myraxian Supreme Commander's face filled the emergency broadcast channels, its translucent skin pulsing with bioluminescent rage. "You primitive savages," the translation crackled through dead-hand speakers. "If we cannot have your world, none shall." Kate watched in horror as the remaining Myraxian ships began a suicide run toward Earth's major population centers. Their quantum cores were going critical. They planned to use their own ships as civilization-ending weapons. "They're channeling all power to their quantum drives," Wilson reported from Raven Rock. "The energy readings are off the charts." Kate's mind raced. Dead Hand's kinetic weapons were effective, but too slow to stop all the ships before they reached their targets. They needed something else, something the Myraxians wouldn't expect. Again, her eyes fell on a dust-covered panel marked Project Gravity's Rainbow Phase 2. "Cooper," she called through the radio, "check Mount Weather's archived files. Look for anything about gravitational manipulation experiments from the 1970s. "Found it," Cooper replied moments later. They were trying to create artificial gravity wells for spacecraft propulsion. The power requirements were insane, even by modern standards. The project was shut down because they couldn't control the effects. Kate's fingers flew across the controls. They couldn't control it because they were trying to be too precise. "Dead Hand's been running those reactors at full power for decades. We don't need precision. We just need chaos." Deep beneath multiple mountain ranges, ancient thorium reactors spun up to maximum output. Power that had been accumulating for 40 years surged through cables that modern engineers had dismissed as abandoned infrastructure. "Warning," Dead Hand's mechanical voice announced. "Gravitational disruption system charging. Casualty projections. Minimal. Property damage. Extensive. Recommended evacuation radius. 100 kilometers from all primary targets." The Myraxian ships continued their descent, their hulls glowing with building quantum energy. They had arranged themselves in a precise geometric pattern to maximize the destruction their suicide attack would cause. That precision became their final mistake. "Gravitational disruption system activated," Kate announced. "All stations brace for impact." Across the globe, hidden gravitational generators activated. They didn't create the precise, controlled fields that modern science demanded. Instead, they generated massive, chaotic gravitational distortions, waves of spatial distortion that rippled through the atmosphere like invisible tsunamis. The effect on the Myraxian fleet was catastrophic. Their tight formation, designed to synchronize their quantum detonations, instead ensured that each ship's gravitational stress amplified the effects on its neighbors. The alien vessels began to break apart, their sophisticated hulls unable to withstand forces they had never been designed to encounter. "It's working," Martine had shouted. "Their formation is collapsing." But the Myraxian Supreme Commander had one final card to play. His flagship, already mortally wounded, drove straight toward Cheyenne Mountain. If he couldn't destroy humanity, he would at least destroy the facility that had engineered his defeat. "All personnel, evacuate," Kate ordered, but she remained at her station. Someone had to ensure Dead Hand stayed online until the threat was completely neutralized. The gravitational waves intensified. The flagship's hull buckled, quantum energy arsing between stress fractures. The Myraxian commander's final transmission cut through the chaos. How did you defeat us with such primitive technology?" Kate's response was lost in the sound of the mountain's automated defenses engaging. Ancient artillery pieces, hidden in caverns that had been sealed since the Vietnam War, unleashed a barrage of simple, unguided shells at the descending ship. The combination of gravitational stress and kinetic impacts proved too much. The flagship's quantum core collapsed in on itself, creating a miniature singularity that lasted just long enough to consume the vessel and its suicidal crew. Across the globe, the remaining Myraxian ships suffered similar fates. Their quantum technology, so advanced it had seemed like magic, proved useless against the raw, uncontrolled forces of basic physics. As the last alien vessel disappeared from Dead Hand's tracking systems, Kate finally allowed herself to breathe. They had won, not with quantum computing or advanced AI, but with the brute force solutions of an earlier, perhaps more pragmatic era. Sometimes, the best solutions were the simple ones. 3 months after the Myraxian invasion, Kate Reynolds stood in a renovated control room deep within Cheyenne Mountain. The old analog displays now sat alongside modern quantum screens, their technologies working in harmony rather than competition. Integration testing complete, Wilson announced from his station. Dead Hand's analog systems are successfully communicating with the restored quantum network. Kate nodded, watching as both old and new monitors tracked orbital traffic. The pieces of Dead Hand's weapon platforms that had survived the battle remained in orbit, no longer disguised as debris, but proudly bearing newly painted Earth Defense Force insignias. Director Reynolds, Martine is called out, still strange to use her new title. The President is ready for your briefing. The main screen flickered to life, showing the Oval Office. Kay had given this presentation a dozen times to military leaders and scientists worldwide, but this was different. This would determine Earth's future defense strategy. Madam President, Kate began, Project Phoenix is ahead of schedule. We've successfully integrated Dead Hand's analog architecture with modern quantum systems, creating a hybrid defense network that combines the best of both worlds. She gestured to a mechanical plotter working alongside a holographic display. The analog systems provide a foolproof backup, immune to quantum interference. Meanwhile, our restored quantum technology offers the precision and speed we need for peaceful applications. And the Myraxian technology we recovered? The President asked. Being studied carefully, Kate replied. But we're not rushing to integrate it. If anything, the invasion taught us the danger of relying too heavily on any single technological approach. Cooper, now her deputy director, brought up detailed schematics. We're constructing new defense platforms based on Dead Hand's original designs, but with modern improvements. Simple, effective kinetic weapons backed by quantum targeting systems, gravitational generators that combine analog power management with digital precision. And most importantly, Kate continued, we're maintaining the old infrastructure, the underground railways, the mechanical computers, the automated maintenance systems, everything that helped us survive. We're not hiding this technology anymore. We're celebrating it. The President nodded approvingly. And the Public Education Initiative. Kate smiled, pulling up footage from the new museum wing at the Smithsonian. School children gathered around a restored analog computer, watching in fascination as it solved complex equations through purely mechanical means. We're teaching the next generation that progress isn't always about having the newest technology. It's about understanding fundamental principles. The Myraxians failed because they couldn't conceive of a threat that didn't match their advanced technological worldview. Speaking of threats, the President leaned forward. What about the possibility of other alien civilizations? Kate switched to Dead Hand's long-range tracking system, its decades of astronomical data now enhanced by quantum analysis. We're watching, and we're ready, but we're also broadcasting a clear message to any potential visitors. She brought up Earth's new automated warning buoys, positioned at the edge of the solar system. They transmitted in both quantum signals and simple radio waves. Earth welcomes peaceful contact. Earth remembers its history. Earth protects its own. Excellent work, Director Reynolds, the President said. I understand you've also started an international technology preservation program. Yes, Madam President. We're working with nations worldwide to identify and maintain older systems that could prove crucial in future crises. It's not about living in the past. It's about learning from it. After the briefing, Kate walked through the facility's halls, now bustling with activity. Young engineers worked alongside retired Cold War veterans, learning the principles behind mechanical computers and analog guidance systems. In the testing range, new recruits practiced manual targeting alongside quantum-assisted systems. She paused at a window overlooking the assembly area, where a next-generation defense satellite was under construction. Its hull contained both vintage tungsten rods and modern quantum sensors, a perfect fusion of past and future. Dr. Reynolds, A young engineer approached with a tablet. "We found another cache of old technical documents. You might want to see these." Kate smiled, taking the tablet. The future would bring new challenges, new threats. But this time, humanity would face them with the wisdom of its past and the power of its present, united in purpose and technology. Sometimes the best way forward was to remember where you came from.